Welcome to the Holy Spirit's Curriculum of Joy podcast. My name is Wanaka Oberhuber, and I am your host. My guest today is Gail Travers. Hi.
Hi.
Let us start with hearing about your journey to A Course in Miracles and what came before that, and how it has transformed your life by changing the way you think about the world.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big topic. I've been sort of a spiritual seeker for as long as I can remember. I grew up mainly with my grandmother, and she brought me up in unity, which is, pretty much New Thought. And I kind of wandered around for a while trying to find something that I could really connect with, but I always had underpinning of belief that God was always with me. I talked to him all the time. It just seemed natural to me because that's how I was brought up. As an adult, I think I hit more significant challenges and strayed a bit from the truth of who I am. And so probably about 20 years ago, I guess, things got kind of serious and I started earnestly trying to connect with the peace of God and get my center back. And I went through a number of different things looking for something that would connect. And about that time, I bought A Course in Miracles, but for some reason, I didn't start reading it right away. It took me about 5 years before I decided to really sit down and pick it up and start reading. I've read it over the last 15 years or so. I've read through the text about 3 times fully. And originally I had a paperback version and I did a lot of underlining and writing in the sidelines and that kind of thing, to try to really internalize the material. I purchased, it got so full I couldn't do any more writing in it anyway, and it was kind of falling apart. So I bought a hardbound version and started to read it for my 4th time. And then I had sort of a life transition where I retired from my career. I'd been a real estate agent, a realtor in California, and circumstances were such that I needed to retire, sell my home, and I relocated to Texas, where I'm now living with my younger son and his wife and my 2 grandsons. It's been sort of a transformative process. And so about 3 years ago, I connected with the Facebook ACIM group, A Course in Miracles group, because I felt that I'd done 10 years of study or so on my own, but it wasn't really connecting for me in my head, right? And not, I wasn't seeing it in my life, and I knew it was true, but I thought, all right, then what I need to do is have a support community where I can really get into things and feel supported in the direction I want to go. And then after my move, I decided January 1st, I thought, I've read through the workbook lessons, but what I really need to do is really commit to doing them and the community can support me in doing them. And that's when I committed to posting a lesson every day and working that lesson every day and kind of doing community. And I have to say that has been the most transformative thing for me. It's moved it from the intellectual realm into the experiential realm for me, where I'm really connected to it much more. It's sort of like, you can have all the equipment, but if it isn't plugged in, you're not getting the benefit of the equipment operating. And that's what I feel like I've been able to do this past year, is actually plug in, and all of the things that were in my head are starting to now reveal themselves in my everyday experience. And transformative is the right word. It's just a different way of thinking, a different way of looking at the world. It's amazing. So I don't know if that all makes sense.
Yeah, it does, of course. So what is since you were brought up in the New Thought, what is your answer to the differences between New Thought and A Course in Miracles, or is it the same?
Well, it's not different, but A Course in Miracles is just sort of like a PhD program. What I think is that a lot of, and maybe this is up to the individual seeker too, it's not so much the source as it is the person who's seeking and where they are in their spiritual development. What New Thought gave me was the basis for everything. It brought me up teaching me about a loving God, and thing is God. I never believed in Satan or hell or any of that. I knew that all there is God, and that somehow if there's something going wrong, it's because of my connection to things and my application of things. I knew I was responsible somehow. I didn't, some other entity for leading me astray. So, but where Course in Miracles has its greatest power is that it's really big on helping people understand that the world really is illusion. I kept trying to take everything I'd learned to change the world that I was experiencing. And it wasn't very successful. All of my attempts weren't very successful. And it wasn't until I finally really got the clear understanding that I was trying to erase a shadow instead of looking around at the source of what was thing. And that's where I think A Course in Miracles has made the difference for me. It just feels like a really advanced application program to take whatever we've learned from whatever source in our relationship to God. Until A Course in Miracles, I didn't understand that I was one with God. I really didn't get that. And I didn't understand the nature of my oneness with everything. That's one of the key things that I think the Course in Miracles brought to me, and sort of expanded on the things I had been taught before.
Yeah. So the shift from bringing the world to truth,
Exactly.
instead of bringing truth to the world,
Yes.
which doesn't work according to A Course in Miracles.
Well, and it didn't work experientially for me. That's exactly right.
It didn't work for me either.
And I kept thinking, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? And it wasn't a matter of being wrong. It was a matter of not understanding the principles completely and being able to apply them.
So do you think that posting about a lesson a day and teaching that, so to speak, by sharing it, right?
Yes.
That made the shift happen, that you actually experienced it?
Yes. That for me was the key to taking what I had put into my head for all those years and seeing it live. It was like the analogy I've always had in my head as I've tried to explain to people is that, you can have this fabulous vacuum cleaner and you can complain that it doesn't work, it won't run, it won't pick anything up. But the key is you haven't plugged it in. Way to plug it in before any device will work for you. And what the workbook lessons and working them with the community taught me how to do was how to plug it in, if that makes sense. And so the results that I had before that were sporadic, and it wasn't like I wasn't connected to God, but I didn't understand that we were one. And I put myself in, because spirit, as long as your own mind is active, that's another thing Course in Miracles has taught me. As long as my own mind was active trying to solve things, Holy Spirit couldn't do anything. And so learning how to put that in neutral and align yourself with your higher mind, is something that you can't really learn intellectually. And what the workbook lessons do, I believe, is helps you retrain your mind in a way to quiet your mind and to be able to find that space where you connect with your source and get the answers you need, and on a more dependable basis.
Yeah. I think that for me, the Course has a calming effect.
Yes. Well, because I can remember saying in that 20, but the beginning of that 20-year period where I really did started my focused and intense search. That was what I wanted. Specifically, I said it out loud. I wrote it down. I want peace. I want the peace of God. I'm tired of fighting and not getting anywhere. And that's what A Course in Miracles has helped me to internalize and now ultimately express.
Yeah. Would you like to share some examples from your life?
There's so many. I'm not. There's a serendipity that has always followed me through life, but I'm seeing it on a more conscious and ongoing level now because I'm aware of it. I'm aware of why it's there. I'm aware of how I connect to it. It goes from the small to the large, from the usual finding a parking space when you need one, having some event that would seem to be cataclysmic work out in just unimaginable ways. I'm trying to think of a specific thing, but just the transformation of what I've really quickly retiring from my real estate career and selling my home and packing myself up and moving east because without that kind of income, living in California was going to be difficult. And I wanted to be closer to my family, but I had no real plan per se of what I was going to do. And somehow that freedom from structure gave me the opportunity to be more connected to how things were going to work out and see them work out. And I wish I could think of specific examples, except that there's so many of them and they click together so beautifully. There are times when sometimes something happens and I just laugh out loud because it's like, wow, God, you're wonderful. It just sort of, it's hard to explain.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a feel for it for everyone who's
Well, I know, and I'm
listening.
trying to think of a better way to. It's just having everything work out always. Regardless of what comes up, there's always a solution. You don't feel alone. You don't feel lost. You feel connected. Um, and I apologize if I'm not able to come up with a specific thing. I know one thing, it didn't have to do with me. One thing I remember, as a realtor, I specialized in helping people with estates where they had to sell. If you have a family member pass away and you are their administrator or their executor and you have to deal with all of that, right? What to
Mm-hmm.
do with a house full of stuff. You don't even live in state. And it was I did that for about 20 years. And it was a really satisfying experience because you connect with people that are going through a really difficult time and you try to help them get through it. In fact, the sale of the real estate is sort of anticlimactic at the end because you've been through so much with them. And I remember in this one particular situation, this person had tried to file the probate and handle it themselves without an attorney. And they thought they had done everything right. And of course, I'm not an attorney, but once I became in the transaction, I realized that they were at risk of losing the property to foreclosure before we could get it sold. And the ability to connect them with an attorney in time to file the things they needed to file with the court and to get things closed, it was like we raced the bank to the finish line. But I felt all along as everything happened and everything fell into place just right before it might have all fallen apart, I really felt like Holy Spirit working with me to help that person. It's so that's the most concrete example right now that pops into my head of just knowing that you're working with a source bigger than you, accomplish things for people in the world who are at a loss for what to do.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It also shows that following guidance and A Course in Miracles actually is a practical.
Oh, it's amazingly practical.
Um,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's actually practical, and that one can apply it to one's life, or in other words, bring life to it.
Yes. Yes. And really the key is, and I see this in the community our Facebook community where questions and things posed by newcomers, everybody wants to understand what it's saying. And it's not really something you can understand and have it work for you. I mean, you can read things and you think, okay, that sounds good, that makes sense, but you have to get the oneness and the connection and understand that you have to go into the quiet and make your own connection, and that is the key to everything. And that it's like part of it is like breadcrumbs leading you to the treasure, but it isn't the treasure.
Yeah, I tend to think that the opening has happened and the Course is there to allow us to see it.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's good. That makes sense.
So actually, we know what the Course is saying before we read it.
You're right. That's a very, very good way to put it, because most of the time when I was reading the text, it was more of a recollection. It was an aha, yeah, I know that. That makes sense. I know that's true. Then it was
Yeah, that's
something
how
new.
I think it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's my impression, that we all have had these insights and information coming from within before we even got to know A Course in Miracles. I don't know if it's true, but I think it is.
Well, it feels
I don't know
true.
how it was for you. Yeah.
It's like when you
Yeah.
hear something that's true, you know it's true. It's like a tuning fork. It's like a bell ringing in within that says that that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. That's what I think. And I think it's the case for many people I've spoken with about A Course in
Hmm.
Miracles. But I don't know. I have yet to see if it's everyone I speak with, maybe.
Well, the thing that I've really come to understand too is that everyone is at their own point of understanding. Each of us is so unique, and our walk with our God is so unique that it's almost a separate language for each of us. And, you know, where before I would have been tempted, as soon as I got something that made sense to me, I wanted to run out and share it. And I realized that doesn't work. Everything, it has to be from the inside out. Everybody has to connect in a way that makes sense to them and works for them. And so the other thing A Course in Miracles has taught me is that the best thing I can do for other people or for the world at large is to be in the stillness and to connect with Source myself. And by doing that, to raise the energetic level of everyone, especially those that are reaching out for those answers. And that because we're all one mind, my doing that is far more effective than trying to explain anything in human terms.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like every insight or every lived experience
Yes.
contributes.
It's like God is living through each and every one of us. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious about you and how you came to A Course in Miracles and came to do your podcast and all. I've wondered about that.
Well, I actually recorded a podcast with Pamela Whitman where she asked me questions. So we'll be able to hear more about that in that podcast.
Oh, okay. Well, then I won't
And
make you
anyone else
repeat.
who's interested as well. And of course, there's more to the story than what is shared in the podcast, but there's a lot in there
Okay.
already.
So you're not going to talk about it today. Okay.
I would like to ask you a question about open-mindedness,
Yeah.
because that's one of the qualities of a teacher of
Yeah.
God, and I've said that that's something that's very important to
Yes.
me, because it's not about setting one's mind and saying this is the way things are, because you were just
Hmm.
explaining that you're not here to tell people what to
No,
think. You are focusing on changing your
right.
mind, and that is the greatest contribution you can make.
Exactly.
Would you like to expand on that?
Um, well, you did a really good job of explaining it. I'm not sure sure how I could expand on it, but we are, it's an interesting thing because we are all one mind, but we are at different points in time within our own human experience. So we're looking at everything from different perspectives. So that's why you're right in terms of open mind. Um, it's not my place to tell someone else that what they're thinking isn't correct. And it really helps. A Course in Miracles teaches me to see people for who they really are, or to try to see people for who they really are. And particularly now when there's so much going on in the world, it's so divisive. And there's so many people that have quote unquote taken sides and are battling one another. And A Course in Miracles has helped me understand that all of that human ego is what's keeping us from experiencing our truth and our peace, and that it's not about changing anyone else's mind. You're right. It's about changing our own mind and concentrating on what the truth is, so that we hold that space for truth. And because it comes from God, it's more powerful than all the human thought in the world. So if we want it to be realized in the world, that's where we have to maintain our focus. And regardless of what the person before us thinks they believe or tries to tell us is right or wrong, it's sort of irrelevant.
Hmm. Yeah, because you're not coming from argument,
No.
are you?
Well, yeah, our argument is ego. Conflict is ego. What is it? I think Jesus said, if you meet someone and disagree with it, and they disagree with you, agree with them quickly, something like that, because conflict takes us the wrong direction.
Yeah, I think in A Course in Miracles there's this passage about giving the sibling what they want,
Hmm.
right? And even giving them more.
Right.
I haven't completely understood that
Well,
passage myself, but I think it's a very deep
oh,
passage.
extremely. It's so hard for people to understand how they don't lose by giving someone else their space to be who they are, that they can't be harmed. That's the other thing that A Course in Miracles helps us understand, is that we, as who we really are, can't be harmed by someone else. They don't pose a threat to us. And when you don't fear one else, they don't respond to you fearfully, because it takes two to fight. It takes two to tango, as they say. So if it doesn't, and I've experienced that now in conversations with people when they try to engage me in some kind of a debate, or, some kind of discussion that has conflict in it. And if I don't participate, they're really puzzled at first. And then ultimately, it all kind of just evaporates if you don't participate in it. And you end up in a good place with that person instead of one of you having to be right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big thing, letting go the habit of arguing.
Well, being right for human beings makes them feel safe. I think that's why they want to be right, because they're trying to justify whatever it is that they have constructed that makes them feel safe.
Yeah, and the Course in Miracles tells us that it's the opposite way
Exactly.
around, which I think is significant because A Course in Miracles tends to turn things
Oh,
around.
totally.
Because
Yeah.
many spiritual traditions say, bring love to the world, right? And A Course in Miracles says, bring the world
Yeah.
to love.
Yeah.
because otherwise you are perpetuating illusion.
Yes. Yes. That makes total sense. So, and it's not an intellectual thing. It doesn't make sense to the intellect that, you return love for hate, or you bless those that curse you. All those things to the world don't make sense at all. So there's no way to really explain that. And so when you're around people that really believe differently than you, the only thing you can do is try to hold your space in truth and try to see them for who they really are, even if they don't see it themselves. And ultimately, that's the only thing that will work. That's what you come to understand.
Yeah, that's a very, very, very important thing because we don't know how to do
No,
it.
human beings don't know how. And that's the other thing, is that we don't have to do it ourselves. For years, I kept thinking I took responsibility too far, thinking I had to do everything myself. I had to make everything right myself. And I love Lana Carolyn posts a lot of things that talks about how God tells her, you don't have to be strong for me. That really resonated for me. A lot of what she posts resonates for me, that I don't have to do it myself. What I have to do is get myself out of the way and connect to my source and be in a space that allows that power to flow into whatever the situation is.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love her posts as well, and I also
I
interviewed her
read
too.
that. That was
So
one of my favorites. Yeah.
yeah, so she loves sharing these things. Yeah, and I also have been getting insights into how I am loved no
Yes.
matter what, and how freeing that is. Because sometimes you think you're lazy, sometimes you think you've done
Mhm.
too much, sometimes you think you were unfair, you think this and that. You're always judging yourself
Yeah.
about so many things, and this idea that I'm loved actually frees you to serve others.
Yes.
Because I always thought, it would you would start doing less for others if you started accepting yourself the way you are and saying, I'm loved no matter what I do. You might not listen to anyone else anymore.
I think you're right. It is exactly
Yeah,
the opposite. What gets to most people is the guilt monster. That drives most of humanity, unfortunately, right now, it's really hard for me sometimes not to beat myself up about things and just say, nope, let it go, choose again. Let it go, choose again. Because none of us as human
yeah.
beings can do it. So,
And I was speaking with David Andre in the podcast about this last
oh,
judgment
right.
and how God dismisses the case against you.
Yes.
And I've been thinking about that, and it's a very freeing
Oh, it
thought.
is. It's hard for people to accept the atonement. It's hard for them to believe that the things they've done aren't real and haven't come up into the mind of God at all. It's, you know, most people don't believe they deserve peace or heaven or, whatever it is in their heart they truly want. They somehow feel like they have to earn it, and there's no way we can.
Yeah, yeah, that's really, really powerful.
So, anyway, it's an amazing, A Course in Miracles is just an amazing thing. And, it took me too long to really get to it and to get it internalized. But it's good to know that, time is only a human construct and that we have eternity to get it right.
Yeah. Do you have a vision for
A vision for
humanity?
humanity? Is that what you asked?
Yeah.
I see the world, that the one I want to see, the world on earth, is one where the love of God is manifest. I think humanity is going through this struggle for its understanding of who it is right now. And there's so much dust being kicked up. And my vision for the world is that they will be pulled toward the light. And the more of us that become aware of what the truth is, and the more of us that hold that in our minds, that the power of that lightness is greater than any of the darkness that's trying to pull humanity down. And I just see that lightness raising the world, raising humanity closer to having heaven on earth. That would be my vision for humanity.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people who are sharing very negative ideas of what will happen with humanity.
Yeah.
So I thought we might like to share another
Yes.
way
Yes.
of seeing it.
I think that was a great question. And there's a lot of fear running around the world right now. And the only way to counteract darkness is to introduce light. That's it. Because darkness has no substance. It's simply the absence of light. So that's the only way to lighten the world. Be a source of that light. I can't think of a better thing to do for any of us.
Yeah, to allow darkness to come to the light, as of course.
Yeah, well, and actually it's what you were talking about, you actually bring the light to the darkness, actually, right? I don't know if I'm getting that right in terms of bringing with.
No, of Course in Miracles
Do they?
says it the other way around. We bring the darkness to the
Interesting.
light.
I missed that.
Because A Course in Miracles says that because if you are bringing light to darkness, that doesn't work, because the darkness diffuses it.
I've got to go look for that. Thank you.
So when you bring the darkness to the light is where the truth, and so everything is judged by the light.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Brought to the light. And if you judge it by darkness because you're bringing it to the darkness is the one that has the criteria of why what is, and then you can only have more darkness.
Well, I'll have to look for that. I was just thinking of the physical action, I guess, of walking into a dark room with a candle is where I was coming from. Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful too, to see it that way. Anyways, I have a whole podcast.
Oh, good. I'll look for it.
So
I will
listen to that. Yeah, bringing the world to peace, I think it's called, or something like that. I'd have to look it up.
Hey, well, that sounds great. I'll look for that.
Is there what type of ideas do you think bring you the most peace nowadays?
The idea that God is the only power there is, and the idea, the understanding that I am one with that. It is one with me. And the understanding that I am one with all life, all connected. That brings me great peace. And on a human level, just seeing the points in history where, the human spirit has come through so many dark times, to be better than they were. And I see no reason why, Holy Spirit and its mission to bring us all home would not continue to be successful.
Yeah. So the idea that success is guaranteed, like A Course in Miracles,
right? It teaches us that we're already there. All this is already just remembering it. Yeah. So,
any practices you'd like to share with our listeners?
I would just encourage everyone who hasn't done it before to really commit to doing the workbook lessons. And sometimes to the intellect, and I've seen some people respond that way to the postings. To the intellect, some of them seem really elementary and basic and, well, yeah, of course, but that's because they're looking at it intellectually and not internalizing it. But that has been the most, after all of the courses and the reading of the text itself several times, the thing that has really been the key for me has been working workbook lessons for helping me to be able to experience the truth I'm reading about. So I would encourage people to do that and to find some time, even if it's a few minutes every day, to just get still and get into the quiet and connect to the source of everything and to remind themselves that they are one with that.
Beautiful. Yeah. Do you have any favorite resources that you use, like posts by other students or
Well,
teachers and books or
the Course in
podcasts or
Miracles
whatever?
Facebook group that I'm part of is really the first thing I open every morning when I get onto my computer when I get up in the morning and have a cup of coffee, and I look at what my community has posted. There are, as you know, you have your podcast links on there, and Lee has postings that she does meditations. So I connect with my community um, first thing every day. And I have the Course in Miracles book that I'm reading, and I have um, different books from Joel Goldsmith that I continue to read and reread. I think by this time I have about every book he's ever written. And so I just try to keep some part of that, in my awareness every day.
Yeah. So you said Lee
Yes.
Capilano and
Yes.
Lana Carolan, and are there any others you would
I
suggest
think
people read?
they are the two most prolific posters on my Facebook group. And so a lot of what I read from them, and then other folks, and there are a number of other people in our group, our community, that post, maybe not on as regular a basis. So, but community has been very important for me. I think finding a community that is studying what you're studying and supporting what you're working to achieve in your spiritual life is really important.
Okay, would you like to name the
Sure.
group and where else one can
Certainly.
reach you?
Well, it's A Course in Miracles, Joel Goldsmith, Herb Fitch, and the Teachings of Jesus Christ. That's the Facebook group I belong to. And I know there are a lot of other Course in Miracles Facebook groups. That one works for me because when Lee began the group, she set up that we stay on topic, because it's so easy for these groups to wander far afield into discussions that are adversarial or conflicting, and you don't get that sense of peace from being there. And because of the parameters that she set up with this group, if there's a post you don't agree with, you just pass it by. If there's a post that you resonate with, then you can comment and let them know. And free to post whatever they want about their study of these issues, of their study of A Course in Miracles, or Joel Goldsmith, or Herb Fitch, who was a student of Joel's, or, their relationship with Jesus. As long as they post on those topics, everybody's free to do that without being, critiqued or criticized or what have you. And that has given that group a really special atmosphere, in my opinion. It just gives me a real sense of peace to go there and be there and just spend time there. So that's really important to me. And I can be messaged on Facebook. I have a regular Facebook page, but basically I don't post hardly ever on that. I use it to stay in touch with friends and family, just to see what they're up to. I spend on
Mm-hmm.
on my Course in Miracles Facebook group. So Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah. So I once again thank you for coming to speak with me about our hearts, wishes, and
Well, thank
thoughts
you
on
for
A
being
Course in Miracles.
invited. It really kind of caught me off guard. I'm
Yeah,
just another student. The fact that you took the time to reach out to me and ask me to do this, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
yeah. I've set the goal of having anyone
Yes.
can tell
Yeah.
their story here, and or just their thoughts. Right? It doesn't even have to be a story on the topic. And this podcast is
Oh, okay.
interdisciplinary as well, so
Good.
it's open-minded. So one doesn't have to be a course
Well,
student
that's
to come here.
then the people that listen to your podcast have a opportunity of finding something that resonates for them. That's great.
Yeah, and so I do relate to A Course in Miracles in every conversation, right?
Hmm.
By bringing thoughts from it, and then if someone's not a course student,
Sure.
they can comment on that, right? And so on. So it's always on A
Well,
Course in Miracles.
that's the thing with truth is it shows up in a lot of different disguises. So, but it's
Yeah,
always the same truth.
yeah.
You're
So
welcome.
so
Thank
thank you
you.
for coming. And like I said, anyone can tell their
Yes.
can speak here when
Great.
it's on topic.
It is, and I really
So it's
appreciated
really
the chance
great.
to talk with you. I enjoy your posts as well.
Thank you. So anyone who wants to spread the word about the podcast, and I also have
Hmm.
a group of the same name, so one can get all kinds of information. Not all my posts go to all groups, so there's
Well,
more
I'll have
on
to
my
check into
page
that.
than on others. And yeah, so there's, and I'm also on Instagram, and I have a Telegram channel where only
Wow.
my
Well, you're
posts
much
come.
more digitally exposed than I am. I'm, I guess I'm just not as techno literate. I'm getting there, but I pretty much have my email and my posts and some podcasts that I see. And maybe now that I'm retired, I'll do more explanation or exploration and figure out different ways I can be involved online as well.
Yeah, and sharing your experiences is actually one of the most wonderful things you can do
Well, yeah, well,
for all of us.
you're welcome.
So thank you for
I hope
sharing here.
that it people find it interesting. As I say, I just consider myself just a student among many. So hopefully, if anyone listens to it, it'll have something that'll be meaningful for them.
Oh yes, the intention is for it to be truly helpful, and
Right,
we are all equal, and
right.
that's the wonderful thing about it. That's why I do not, it's not geared to have to be specific
Hmm.
course teachers, for instance, on the podcast.
That's
Anyone is
that's
welcome.
great.
So yeah, you will see names you
Well,
know
and
from
then
posts
sometimes
and
there are
names you
people
don't
that are
know.
credentialed, right?
They're all here.
Maybe they're published authors or some sort of degrees and things. And so I think it's tempting sometimes for us to feel a little bit intimidated about sharing because we maybe don't have that behind us. But you're right. We all have a story that's valuable and that might have something in it that resonates with someone else. So
Yeah, for sure.
good.
That's why it's
Well, you're
important
doing
to
good
me.
work.
Right. Uh, so anyone, like I encourage once again, anyone who would like to share, um, I have an
Well,
open
good.
forum.
Well, it's been a
So
pleasure to talk with you.
yeah, it was a pleasure for me too. And till next time to all the listeners, and
Okay.
yeah,
Have a
till
great
next time to you as well.
bye.
You too. Bye bye.